This is All Ears with JP Finlay.
Commanders went up to Baltimore for a joint practice. Sure, there were some highlights. Jayden Daniels connecting with rookie Antonio Williams right there. Got to see Lamar Jackson in action. Action Jackson, quite a player the Ravens have at quarterback. And this was maybe the highlight of the day. That is rookie linebacker Sonny Styles in absolute textbook coverage on a Ravens tight end. But this is where the trouble started. The Washington offensive line got outdone by the Ravens defensive line. It was a problem throughout the practice session. We've talked at length about the center position. Matt Golban, the rookie, can he get it done? He certainly did not on that rep right there. I want to be positive. You don't want to make too much out of a joint practice in August. You see Jayden Daniels there shaking hands with Lamar Jackson, but the reactions from the folks, boots on the ground, were ugly. Nicky Jhabvala from The Athletic, this is the worst I've seen the Commanders' offense in years. Inoperable offensive line. David Aldridge, also from The Athletic, watched Washington's offense today in its joint practice with the Ravens. It did not go well. O-line, to be fair, no Sam Cosmi, important point, had it rough. And yet, on the last play, Jayden Daniels threw a rainbow touchdown to Antonio Williams. Overall, though, the Ravens D owned the morning. I mean, the language in these tweets is strong. Mitch Tischler, the big man from Monumental Sports Network and the Beltway Football Podcast. The Commanders' offense struggled more today than the Redskins' defense did versus Tom Brady in Richmond. I was at that practice. It was a bloodbath. They struggled to run the ball, and outside of Terry McLaurin, who had one explosive, I don't think had another play more than 5 to 10 yards. There were procedure issues and drops as well. Can only go up from here. And then you have John Keim from ESPN, the dean of the beat. They need Allegretti healthy. They need more depth. Of course, they're talking about Nick Allegretti, who Dan Quinn and Adam Peters put a roster together for Nick Allegretti to be your starting center, only he hasn't practiced throughout training camp. What up, everybody? I am JP Finlay. This is All Ears. And I know that for a lot of fans, it feels like the sky is falling after this joint practice against the Ravens. I understand it. I can wrap my brain around it. That said, this is August. Sam Cosmi was not on the practice field. Nick Allegretti was not on the practice field. As far as Cosmi goes, I expect him back. He was dealing with an illness. I don't think we have to be worried about Sam Cosmi. Allegretti, on the other hand, we all understand how important the center position is, and Allegretti basically hasn't practiced throughout training camp. That is a real issue, and it's a real issue of Washington's making. Adam Peters, Dan Quinn made the decision to release Tyler Biadasz during the offseason. They did make a run at Tyler Linderbaum, who signed for major money at the center position with the Las Vegas Raiders, but after that, they didn't bring in another veteran backup. And with Allegretti on the shelf for the better part of a month now, you're really seeing that lack of depth. It's alarming for this Commanders team, especially with week one looming. I do want to talk about some of what Jayden Daniels was able to do against Baltimore, especially in these one-on-one sessions. Jayden has looked crisp throughout training camp. The problem is Jayden Daniels is reliant upon this makeshift offensive line right now, and that is problematic. Let's get right into what I'm hearing. Jayden Daniels explaining how he felt the joint practices went.
I mean, it was a great opportunity to come out versus a team of Baltimore. Good players, well coached. Back and forth battle, not the best day that I thought we could have had. Just from all around, from myself to everybody else. But, you know, these are opportunities that you get to learn from. I would say you just got to play everything true. Own this, watch the tape, take the coaching, be coachable to be able to move forward from this. The good thing about it, man, is August whatever. I don't know what day it is, but it's August whatever. Our first game is September 13th. So that's when it really matters. So this is an opportunity just to be around each other. We're out here for a couple of days, be in the hotel with each other, bond, connect, and really just build that camaraderie, chemistry moving forward to the season.
It's great that the Commanders are going to spend some time together in Baltimore with that preseason game. That's all well and good. The camaraderie, the chemistry, that stuff's real. But you also need players on the offensive line. And right now, with the Allegretti injury and then Cosmi missing time, everybody knows that Laramie Tunsil was injured early in training camp. If he plays, it's not going to be until like Thanksgiving. So at some point, this is the group they're going to be dealing with, and they got to start performing better for Jayden Daniels to get to his best. If you watch some of these highlights, that's Julian Good-Jones, who was kind of getting the starting center reps with Allegretti out. Now they're going to this rookie, Matt Gulbin. Andrew Wiley's a veteran backup tackle. They did add some depth in DJ Humphries, but you really wonder if they've got enough. Jayden Daniels and Dan Quinn talked about the center position and this offensive line in general.
Nah, I mean, I got to do my job. At the end of the day, they have to do their job. So I never want to go out there and complain about X, Y, and Z. That's not me, because at the end of the day, I can control what I can control. And everybody in this organization, on this team, has a job to do. So who am I to go out there and try to do other people's job? You know, my job is to come out here and get better as a football player, lead this team. So ultimately, when November, December, and those months come around, we can win football games.
We're still working with Nick. He's not there yet, coming back from his injury. But between the three of them, you know, we're still in the process of evaluating, you know, what's the best way for us to go. So that'd be one of the spots that I'm still digging in on and still looking.
We do a good job throughout QB center exchange. I'm working with different guys. When they come in, you know, just that camaraderie and everything. I think more so just being on the same page, communicating. For me, whether that's knowing what the point, we're pointing the same way, where they're going, do I have to flip a protection, run game, stuff like that, and really just breathing life into whoever's in there.
Listen, let's tell the truth here. Washington created a situation where they were dependent on Nick Allegretti. Then he gets injured. So now Washington not only needs Allegretti to get back healthy, they need him to stay healthy, and then they need him to perform at a serviceable to good level, and that's not even a certainty. I thought Allegretti was pretty good in the 2 games he started at center late last season, but that's hardly a giant sample size to determine what's going to happen. Roster cuts are Sunday afternoon. We're going to have a live all ears that evening going over everything the Commanders decide to do. But the reality is they're almost forced to sign a veteran center next week when roster cuts happen all over the NFL, and there should be some veterans that hit the open market. This is a situation that was a little bit concerning when they decided to release Tyler Biadasz and go with Allegretti. This Allegretti injury has only poured gasoline on that concern. It's a full-blown fire at this point. For the rest, though, of the offensive line, particularly the tackles, with Tunsil out, you're going to go with Brandon Coleman on the left side. Josh Conerly, the first-round pick from last season, going into his second year. Where do those guys see this thing at?
I feel like we were just out of sync a little bit with our combos, and then it was a little bit of mix-up in the lineup as well. So there were some guys next to each other that haven't worked next to each other at all this whole camp. But we made it work, and we got going eventually. I mean, well, when you don't get a rep next to somebody the whole camp, and then you end up getting like 12 of them here in joint practice, there's a little. It's like working with new coworkers, if that makes sense for y'all.
Personally, I think it needs to be more from us as a group. O-line wise, like, I feel like we got to be the ones to push everything on the offense. I think it was up and down, like, and that got to obviously correct before week 1. People straining everything, the little details, you know what I mean? I even noticed that myself, like, the I want back, and you can't have back in the season. So getting on it now, like, correcting that, we got to do that. That's kind of what I took from today. It was a lot of good, but also a lot we have to get on. It sounds very negative what I'm saying, but that's just because that's what you asked. Like, on the other side, like, there's so much good that happened today, from receivers hitting their marks to Jayden doing what he does, O-line communicating, running off the ball. Like, there's so much good stuff that you can take away from the same day. But that's what practice is. There's good stuff, there's bad stuff. And you always want to correct the bad stuff because the good stuff is the expectation that you want. So, yeah.
It's wise words there from Brandon Coleman. You know, not everything that Washington is doing is bad. Mikey Samerstill had a pick of Lamar Jackson. Like, there are some positive things to talk about. But the woes on the offensive line during the joint practice, combined with the offensive line play we saw in Detroit in that second preseason game, where Jayden Daniels and the starters were only out there for 3 snaps, Dan Quinn called it a moment of disarray. So you wonder, this past week for the Burgundy and Gold, what exactly is going on? It got to the point that Dan Quinn, the Commanders were scheduled to just have a walkthrough with no media present earlier in the week. Dan Quinn, after the Detroit loss, said, no, we've got to practice. What you guys are going to be here, you've got to see it. We've got to press the gas. I do want to play this from DQ. This is what they're saying. Why did you have to have an extra practice?
A lot of that, what I saw, that wasn't us, and that bothered me. And so today is our time to get to the truth, why. So I took a long time. I went through a lot of plays, and I didn't feel like we played complementary football. I said that felt in disarray.
Just go work, man. Like, I'm never going to complain about getting better. If that's the case, then I'm in the wrong profession. So let's go get better. Let's figure out the things that we need to work on, and let's go work on it.
Yeah, we just didn't get a lot of reps in the game. I wanted a little bit more reps. Me personally, I didn't like the 3 and out. You get ready for a game and like geeked up, and for me, I was ready to do a couple drives. So, but they took us out, and we're just getting more reps out here versus good versus good. So I think that was the main premise of that.
It's interesting to hear Sam Cosmi there, a player that always leaves it all on the line, talk about wanting more work, and then he had to miss the Ravens practice because of that illness. I do think Cosmi could have really cemented some stuff. If you think about the interior of that offensive line going against Baltimore, a lot of new faces, a lot of new places. So maybe it's not the best representation of what this group can be. We did also get to see a lot of one-on-one work, both the linebackers and the tight ends. This is defensive backs and wide receivers. Steph Diggs wearing number 3. So long, Will Harris. Steph Diggs, the separation, the hands, that dude is the real deal. I think he's really going to help this offense. You're going to see plenty from one-on-ones. The only thing I say, keep in mind with one-on-ones, the offense really has the advantage here. The defensive backs don't have any support behind them. There's nobody rushing the passer. Still, though, you've got to be encouraged. Jalen Lane right there, who's had a pretty impressive training camp throughout. And, Antonio Williams, the rookie here, that's Kyle Hamilton he's going up against. That's no slouch right there. Antonio Williams continues his impressive training camp. Terry McLaurin there. And then what about the defensive side of the ball? Lamar's going for it. Lamar's won multiple MVPs, I believe. Lamar's an all-world type player. You got some real beasts. Derrick Henry, anybody familiar with King Henry going against Leo Chenal right there? Don't draw too much from the one-on-ones. Know, though, that there was some really good work, including that from Styles. We showed you that a little earlier, I think. Styles having a good session in Baltimore. Don't draw too much from the one-on-ones, and don't draw too much from the offensive line really getting the bad end of the stick in Baltimore. I do want to get to what you missed. There is one player in the defensive back room having a great camp, Quan Martin.
I've really felt like an energy from Quan Martin, from practice, from the games, from the way he's helped on special teams, not helped, the way he's played on special teams. I've just felt an intensity and an urgency about him. So I don't know if surprised or if that's the right answer for that specific question, but he's one that jumps out to me. He's throwing a really good camp, and I feel it. I feel it in play and confidence and moving forward, and the way he's gone about it has been impressive to me, of just putting his head down and getting to the work.
I think I improved a lot, man. Just, taking the drills to the field and, just getting work in the off season, and just being able to see it translate on the field for me, and continuing to improve. So that's the biggest thing, man. Never get too comfortable, never get too complacent, and just keep going.
Watching him every day, young guy, but similar to Mikey, man. Sponge guy, come in, work his tail off whenever his number's called. He always, he's always there, and even through the ups and downs, he's always willing to learn. He know how to take coaching, he know how to take accountability. He don't get in his feelings about it. I could tell that guy loved it. He loved being out here, and he loved seeing. We also love seeing improvement. And just to say he's a young guy. I think he handled himself well. He come out, like I said, he coming out here. He come out each and every. He's quiet, but he gonna put the work in, and he gonna make his plays whenever his number's called.
Now, you remember, astute viewers at home, that I called Quan Martin to the Pro Bowl last year. That didn't happen, obviously. Never wrong, just early. Maybe this is the year for Quan. When we return, we're introducing the All-Ears Fear Index. The Ear Fear Index, perhaps. You're going to want to see this, trust me. Here. You want some good news from the joint practice? What about Mikey Samerstill in the end zone with the leaping interception of Lamar Jackson taking a knee? That was in a goal-to-go situation. That was a simulated end-of-game situation. Mikey Samerstill making a big play there. We're showing you some good news from Baltimore. Now, you know this logo, All Ears with JP Finlay. I still don't know how they came up with this name. Well, we're kind of replacing it from all ears to all fears. What am I talking about, you may wonder? Well, we've been kind of wondering, how concerned are we about some of these position groups and how severe the injuries have been? So All Fears Ear Index, let's talk about the offensive line. How concerned are we? This is all the way up, folks. This is a 4-ear alarm. I can't stress this enough. The offensive line issues. First, you lose Laramie Tunsil. You could argue he's the best player on the team. If not, he's second best. He's also the highest paid. Losing Tunsil is a really big deal that we're going to see play out over the course of this season. Then Sam Cosmi misses just a practice. Cosmi's fine. But the lingering issues at center make this a 4-alarm, 4-ear situation on the offensive line. I am prepared to calm myself down a little after roster cuts if they bring in some veterans with some real experience starting at center. What about the defensive line? Odafe Oweh and Kaylavon Chasen are not going to play against Baltimore. They didn't practice. We haven't gotten much information. Chasen dealing with a knee. Oweh dealing with a calf strain, the same injury that's impacting Nick Allegretti. I got to go 3 years here. Now, I do think this defensive line has a lot more depth, but remember, Johnny Newton likely out for the year with that torn pec. The D-line, they spent a lot of money to make this group better, but so far they're not on the field. What about the defensive backs? By and large, I've been pretty impressed with the defensive backs that are on the field. Really like the addition of Rasul Douglas. Antonio Hamilton gives them some physicality. Quan Martin's having a good camp. They did release Will Harris, but this is a 2-year for me because what is going on with Trey Amos? If somebody can answer that, please write me a letter. Send me a fax. I don't know. We can't get an answer on that. What is going on with Trey Amos? He was a projected starter and hasn't played since November and practiced for a day. And then the quarterback situation. Jayden Daniels looks great, has looked great throughout camp. You can even be excited about Ethan Kaliak-Manis if you want to. I think it's warranted. He's shown some real flashes. But what's up with Marcus Mariota? And can you really go into week 1 with Mariota dealing with the lingering effects from that knee sprain? I don't know. They claim they're not worried about Mariota, but you got to keep an eye on that quarterback situation, man. This is, I don't know if we're ever going to do this again. The all ears, fear, ear, index. Hope you enjoyed it. Mailbag is next. What up? We're back. It's time for the mailbag. This is always my favorite segment every week because you guys get to drive it. Although I did like the all ears, fear, ear index. Maybe we'll have to bring that back. Let's get to it. No Pressure says, realistically, what can we do to fix this mess of an offensive line in 2 weeks? Listen, I'm going to keep reading, but I think I know what the sentiment is. What can Washington do to fix the offensive line? 1, Allegretti could come back. I think that's one thing we keep forgetting. This staff believes Nick Allegretti can really fix that situation. So if Allegretti's just healthy, then maybe it's fixed. I do think they absolutely have to add a veteran after roster cuts. You're going to have players available from all over the league, and they could examine some trade options. I don't think they're going to get a Pro Bowl center in here at this point with the Eagles just 2 weeks out. Let's get to our next question. I think Allegretti can come back healthy, has to stay healthy, and maybe you can pick somebody else up. Oh, our guy Jonas asks, how's the D-line looking? Let's get into the trenches on the other side of the ball. Listen, it's a very good question for our former intern. I think there's a lot to like with this defensive line. I think some of the young guys, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Josh Josephs, have looked really pretty good. But you got to get Odafe Oweh back on the field, Deron Payne back on the field. You got to get Kaylavon Chasen, Charles Omenihu. They've got some pieces. There's a lot to like. I do like some of these big nose tackles they signed during camp. Coward particularly has stood out for me. Maurice Hurst. I like those guys. Those are big fellas able to push the pocket. So the D-line I feel a lot better about than I do the O-line right now. Ben, 3 years into the Jayden era, and there are still real questions about the construction of the roster and the missed draft picks, failed signings. A lot of fans are disillusioned with Adam Peters. Wow. Do you think it's fair that they are? Do I think it's fair that Adam Peters gets here and the team goes to the NFC title game? He picks Jayden Daniels. But there have been some questionable moves. This is the year. This is the third year for his 2024 draft class. He really needs some of those guys to pop. You'd love to see Brandon Coleman have a strong season, Luke McCaffrey have a strong season. He needs to be proven right. I also think if Sonny Styles comes out and has a monster year, will certainly help. I think it's a little too early for words like disillusioned, but I do understand fans are frustrated right now, particularly with this center situation that they created. Reese Lutwick asks, we have all this attention on the offensive line and specifically center, but I hate negativity. JP, tell me something you've been seeing as a positive this offseason. I think they're deep at wide receiver. I think we were all very concerned about wide receiver, especially last year. You had the Terry holdout, a bunch of injuries. They're going to get to the regular season with Jayden, Terry, and Steph Diggs healthy and a lot of capable contributors further down that list. That is good news for you, folks. We also got some crazy superstitions. Don't go anywhere. Eun Yang is a friend of the program, NBC4 anchor, and a huge Commanders fan. So we brought her out to training camp and said, Eun, do some reporting.
Do you have any pregame rituals?
Yeah. Got a couple. So first, I always got to make sure I put on my right cleat first. I know it started in college, but I really feel like it's just a routine kind of thing. And then I got, back at home, I got to make sure. Low-key, I might have OCD.
Tell me more.
Just, make sure all the doors are closed, stuff like that. So when I come back, everything's in order.
Head to the stadium, get there at 9. I'm taking a shot of tequila in the car, in the parking lot. And then say my prayer, take my shot, walk in. I'm in the locker room getting ready. They'll pre-warm up. And then I'll take another shot with the boys in there. It's a linebacker thing.
Yep. So I just pray and I listen to gospel music.
You do?
Yeah.
Any favorites?
Oh, yeah, I got a few, The Best of Me by Marvin Sapp, that's a classic, we grew up listening to as kids. Hezekiah Walker, I listen to CC, I've got a slew of, good songs. Holy Forever is usually my go-to.
Some serious superstitions there. Different strokes for different folks, I suppose. I can tell you, after hearing what those guys told Eun, great reporting by Eun, by the way. We were huge fans of Eun. I was so glad she was able to come to camp. A lot of guys do a lot of different things before games. How about this? Dan Quinn, Jesse Minter, head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. Kind of a fun moment there. Mikey Samerstill seeing his old college coach.